first time I've seen my company logo projected on the screen. I'm quite proud of it. Oh, nice. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. As you said, I'm Ben Hammersley. I'm the editor-at-large of Wired magazine. For those of you who don't know what an editor-at-large is, it's somebody who's not allowed in the office anymore because he's a bit too noisy. I'm editor-at-large, as I said, I'm editor-at-large of Wired, and before that I have had a very varied and slightly bizarre journalistic and publishing career. I was asked to give a little background to myself, so, and as I have a gold mic, which makes me feel a little bit like Beyonce, I'm going to go with it. I started off as a broadsheet newspaper journalist in 1998, so sometime when some of you were about 10 and sometime when some of you were about 40. Starting off as a traditional newspaper journalist and possibly the last intake into a original old school newspaper. I was the technology correspondent for the Times during the whole dot-com boom, but really before the Times or anybody was doing anything online. And then after that I moved over to The Guardian and I started doing lots of online things. I started building their blogs for them. I became the first multimedia reporter for The Guardian. I started doing video and radio and things from the hillsides in Afghanistan, where I was using a laptop and a satellite phone and a digital camera to send things back to a website that I'd built, and articles back to the paper, and a audio programming back to a thing called a podcast, which was a word that I'd invented, apparently. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, he rang me up one morning and said, "Hey, did you invent this word?" I was like, "Shit, yes, apparently so." And then after that, I went to the BBC, and I was one of the first ever cross-platform reporters for the BBC, where I did television and radio and the web, as most BBC reporters do, but I also filed directly to Twitter and to Flickr and to Facebook and to MySpace and to pretty much everything we could possibly throw content at, making myself and my producer very ill in the process. It's just far too much work. We can get onto that in a minute. So, and now I find myself editor-at-large of Wired, which is a very glossy, very traditionally published magazine, very, very high production values. We take an awful lot of time and trouble over the printing aspect of it. And I do Dangerous Precedent, where I'm producing an online publishing content management system. And I'm also, as of last Monday, as of this week, I'm also head of digital at Six Creative, which is a very large creative agency that does an awful lot of high fashion and couture brands. Just because I like girls in frocks, mostly. Now, the reason I'm saying all that bio is not just to fill the 5 minutes that I didn't know what to say, but also to give you an idea of the historical journey that the publishing industry has gone on over the past 10 years. You could easily make the case that the past 10 years for the publishing industry has been perhaps far more transformative than the previous couple of thousand. Publishing on cuneiform tablets, or papyrus, or on parchment, or on movable type in China, or movable type in Germany, or pamphlets and gazettes in 19th century England, has basically been the same thing. The method of putting the marks on the thing and the thing itself have been different, but it's been basically the same thing. But over the past 10 years, certainly over the past 15 years, certainly over the past 10 years, and absolutely over the past 6 months, publishing has transformed itself absolutely radically. In a single generation, we've gone from quite a steady, if romantic, if not particularly lucrative business, to something where the business has really been ripped up and thrown in the bin, and is having to be reinvented by you guys, actually. And we can say, I'm sure the other speakers will get onto this, but we can start to make, although this is all very new, it's also all very old. We've been having conferences like this, having conversations like this for the past 10 years. I've certainly been speaking at an awful lot of them. And a friend of mine, Tom Coates, came up with an analogy once where he said old media has been chased down the street by the snail of the internet. We've kind of seen it coming for a very long time. Of the students in this room, there probably isn't anybody who remembers a time before the internet. So in many respects, it's actually kind of shameful that we're actually having this conference in the first place, I'm sorry to say. Because actually, these things have been sort of coming down the road for a very, very, very long time. It's just that right now, literally this month, and in fact, well, actually, 9 o'clock in the morning on April the 3rd Eastern Standard Time, the publishing industry is going to shoot itself in the head. Because that's when the first iPad is sold, in the Apple Store, New York. Or, because we're in England, it's going to be 6 o'clock in the evening, Regent Street, April the 30th. Either way. But it's very, very much upon us at this point. And there are certain things that we can say for certain. And because I could go on about this forever, I'm going to cut it down to one thing. I was asked to talk about, do writers need digital skills? Well, yeah. All right, okay. No. Yes, you do. And why do you? Well, it can be generally accepted now that publishing is a thing you do across multiple outlets, across multiple formats. The thing that you're publishing, in order for you to compete against everything else that you're competing with is as a publisher, the thing that you're publishing has to be made available in every possible outlet that it can be made available in. Because everybody in this room, everybody on this planet has their own favorite outlet on which to consume media. And if you want to gather as big an audience as you possibly can, you have to publish across as many of those devices as you possibly can. I do enormous amounts of my reading on this. So if you're not publishing on this, I'm not going to read your stuff. I'm really sorry, it's probably my loss. Yes, I agree with you, but either way. And other people like paper, and other people like an iPad eventually, and other people like a desktop web, and some people like television, some people like reading it on posters, and other people like it in papyrus and scrolls, or whatever it is. But if you want to gather that entire audience, you've got to publish across all of these platforms. Now, none of the old platforms are going to die. Cinema didn't kill theatre, theatre didn't kill opera, opera didn't kill plain chant, though it should have done. So we're going to have to continue publishing across all of those different things. And for us to publish across all those different things, as content producers, or as publishers as business people, or as publishers as print fetishists, whatever it is you're in this business for, in order to continue to prosper, you're going to have to continue publishing across these multiple platforms. And to do that, you have to understand a certain key fact about those multiple platforms. Each of the multiple platforms that are available to you has its own advantages and disadvantages. One isn't better than the other, but each of them is better at one thing than the others are. Grammar is not my strong point. When I was starting up the team to launch Wired last year, I had many people interview me saying, but dude, like you did all this multimedia stuff and you're on TV and you do radio and you're all about the web, and now you're going back and you're doing print on paper about the internet? What? And the reason that we do Wired on paper is because if you buy the magazine, you should, it's £3.99, very good magazine. Good, I can expense that, good, excellent.